So growing up, I've always loved basketball. I've loved playing basketball. I've loved watching basketball. And one of the guys that I grew up loving to watch was Michael Jordan. You know, my middle name is Jordan. I was born on the 23rd of May. I grew up wearing his number, wearing his shoes, still wear his shoes. I was always a fan of Michael Jordan. And one of the things that I love to do is to research these stories about him when he played basketball. And one of my favorites comes from the 1992 Olympics. Him and the Dream Team were in Barcelona, and Michael Jordan, as great of a basketball player as he was, he also just really enjoyed hanging out and having fun. And so he kind of made this schedule for himself where he would wake up at 6 a.m. every morning. He would go play 18 holes of golf. And if he played bad, he'd play 36 holes of golf. And then he'd go and eat lunch and he'd go work out. And then he'd either have a game or practice that day that would lead him to the evening. And he would go eat dinner with his teammates. And then he would go to the casino for 4 or 5 hours and get back to his room about 2 a.m. and go to bed and get up the next morning and do it all over again. And he did this for 2 weeks straight while he was at the Olympics. And some of the guys on the team started noticing that what he was doing, and they wanted to try to keep up with him. And so they did the same thing. And most of those guys could only last about 4 days because their bodies just demanded rest. They began to shut down because they did not have rest physically. And I think about a lot of us in our life, we maybe not run at that kind of quite of a schedule, but we run at a pace that if we're not careful, and maybe a lot of us, we're screaming for rest. Our soul, our spirit is just demanding rest. We need margin in our life, and the way we need margin is we need to slow down, and we need to find restful situations for our mind and our spirit to dwell in. In the early 2000s, a survey was conducted by a group that went into 31 of the largest cities in the world. And they just calculated the pace and the speed at which people live their life. Well, they went back into those 31 cities about 10 years later to measure how much faster, how much slower things had gotten. And what they found was that people lived and they moved at a faster pace to about 15% faster than what they had once done 10 years before. Well, that study was conducted in 2015, and here we are in 2022, and we ask ourselves, do we think life has gotten slower, or has it drastically gotten faster in these past few years? See, for a lot of us, we engage in this lifestyle where we move from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and it becomes almost this way in which we enjoy living our life. We like the fast pace. We like the speed at which we live these things, and so we come to places like Chick-fil-A and all of its goodness. But as you see in the middle of a morning, in the middle of the fall, the inside is pretty empty, but what's filled is the drive-through. Because people live at a pace. They want to get their food and they want to get on with their day. I'm a notoriously fast driver, and one of the things that I hate hitting is intersections with stop signs and stoplights. And the one thing that I hate seeing is a yellow light, because what a yellow light is meant to do is slow me down. But what I typically use it as is it's a mode for I better go faster so I can get through this light quicker. And the reason I do this, and the reason why a lot of us do this, is because we don't want to slow down. Our life is demanding us to get from place to place, and slowing down it comes against what we're trying to do. It slows us from the things that we're trying to get to. We drive fast because we want to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. We blow through yellow lights and we run stop signs because we don't want anything to slow us up. We don't want anything to slow us down. And so this morning, maybe today, in the place that you find your life, is that this is what it looks like. It's fast paced. We like Chick-fil-A because it's fast. We like it because it's good, and we like it because it doesn't slow us down. So maybe the next time we see one of those intersections where there's a stoplight, and the yellow light comes on, instead of us trying to blitz through it, maybe it's a sign for us that we should just take that moment. Take the moment where the yellow light's causing us to slow down, to actually slow down, to rest and to relax before we carry on with our day. All throughout the gospel narratives, we see these accounts where Jesus lives this life that, as we've talked about, has been busy. Jesus was going from city to city, and he's preaching, and he's walking into the homes of different people. He's ministering, and he's healing, and he goes on a mountainside to pray, or he goes away with his disciples, and these crowds follow him, and they want to hear from him. And it just feels like the more we read the Gospels, the more I read the Gospels, I find that Jesus had a life that was incredibly busy. which is why I think what Jesus offers us in those moments is incredibly important for our life today. You see, Jesus realized that he needed margin in his life, and the disciples needed margin in their lives if they were going to be able to be the ministers and the men and the husbands and the fathers and the leaders that Jesus had called them to be. They needed time away. They needed time to rest. And so what they would do is they would retreat to places that might be similar to this, places where they could get away from the noise and they could get away from the distractions. They could just focus and retreat, reconnect with Jesus, reconnect with themselves, and prepare themselves for the next endeavor that they're going to walk into. You see, margin for us, it looks a lot like this when it comes to our life. And maybe for you today, you've come to a point where you realize, hey, the margin I need in my life is I need quiet in the midst of the chaos. I need quiet in the midst of stress. I need to be removed from these things. One of my favorite parts of my job as a student pastor is I love taking retreats with our students. And we have one that we do every fall. It's called Aftermath. And Aftermath is essentially this. It is a solitary place. It is a way of taking teenagers outside of the norms of their busy life, removing them from all of that, and saying, hey, let's go be away, let's go get quiet for a couple of days, let's reconnect with the Father, and let's spend some time in quiet reflection. You see, it's these moments, I think, where Jesus speaks to us, prepares us, and honestly grows us and strengthens us to be able to go back into our daily life and to do these things. See, these moments of quiet, solitary response and reflection, for a lot of us, I would imagine, in the midst of our busyness, it's the quiet, it's the calm, and it's the margin that we need. Jesus in John chapter 17, he's just been done speaking with his disciples, and he's been telling them a bunch of different things. And we get to John 17, and Jesus prays this prayer over the disciples and over the life that they'll have. And in a lot of ways, I think this is a prayer that is prayed over us. And here's what Jesus says in John chapter 17, verses 14 through 19. He says this, I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth, for your word is truth. And as you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sake I consecrate myself, that they may also be sanctified in truth. See, what I think happens a lot of times for us is that the busier we get, the more we lose focus on the things that are most important. You know, the reason why we do certain things, the speed at which it distracts and it pulls our attention maybe away from the Father. And maybe for us, what we need is margin so that the very things that Jesus is speaking of when he prays this prayer is that they would be true for us, is that we would be kept from the evil one because we have removed ourselves from the busyness of life. We've taken these quiet, solitary moments to reconnect with the Father. Our eyes are fixated on Jesus. Our attention is focused on our life with Christ. And we're able to then, because we have done this, we are able to resist the schemes of the evil one. But also that we would maybe take these moments to sanctify us in the truth. And I think for us today, maybe this is the most important thing, is in a day and in an age where there is constant truth being thrown at us, false truth. Hey, you need to follow your life here. You need to do this. You need to do that. One of the things maybe that happens for us is that as we remove ourselves, as we find these moments of rest, as we escape from some of the chaos of the world, is that we sanctify ourselves in truth. And that truth allows us to resist the evil one. So I don't know where you find yourself today. I don't know what it looks like. Maybe as you go back to your group and you spend some time just reflecting and talking about these things, maybe it's for you, you need to create some margin, some time, and some rest. Maybe you've done this, and one of the things that you have is to share with those around you of the stories of how God has spoken to you, how you have been able to resist because you have sanctified yourself in truth, and because now you have created margin in your life to find space, to find moments of reflection and focus in the midst of a busy and a crazy schedule. So wherever you find yourself today, maybe you're somebody who needs more margin in your life. You say, hey, my life is so busy, I don't have space. I need to find maybe more time in quiet, solitary places. I need to find time to rest and to reconnect with God. But maybe you've done this, you've been on a journey of doing this, and you have a story to tell of how you have experienced the Lord more in that. Wherever you are today, we hope that you will continue to seek margin in your life, to seek moments with the Father, to say, hey, God, I want to be sanctified in your truth so that I can overcome the schemes and the pleas of the evil one. But whatever that looks like for you, we hope you find that. We hope you seek that. And we hope that as you seek more margin, you experience more of who God is, more of his goodness every day.